I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
February 14th, 2008. I can't tell you how many calls I received from friends and relatives regarding Lavinia's situation at Northwestern NIU in DeKalb, Illinois. There had been a mass shooting. Some students were killed, others wounded. Even Lavinia called me to find out if she should come home from where she was to mourn with her fellow Huskies. I said, no, you stay right where you are in the safest place in the world right now, Communist China, studying abroad. As we mourn the loss of the children and teachers that were killed in Uvalde, Texas, I want to remind you that this is not the first time. The earliest known United States shooting happened in school property, happened in Pontiac's Rebellion School Massacre, July 26, 1764, where 4 Lenape Native American Indians entered the schoolhouse, shot the schoolmaster, and killed 9 or 10 children in this place near Greencastle, Pennsylvania. But I think one of the things that's in our recent past memory is the Kent State shootings in Ohio, where the National Guard opened up on a bunch of college students who were unarmed and just protesting the Vietnam War and its move into Cambodian land. Well, this is a sad moment in our history. And let me just say that the shooting at this school followed a bunch of unarmed shoppers in a grocery store in Buffalo, New York, where a young 18-year-old with an anger problem, who knows what else was wrong, went in and shot a bunch of patrons in their own supermarket. Now, like John McCrae of What Do You Mean? I have to blame us. Yes, church folks, I'm blaming the church for this. Why are we not on our knees praying every day for our nation instead of arguing about stupid stuff? Why are we not making moves toward change? Because nothing's going to change if there are not changed hearts. If we do not do things in our power to make those kind of changes. I will tell you that when a woman went into a Winnetka school back in the 80s and shot up a bunch of kids, Chicago Public Schools took stock of this. They started having armed guards as hall guards in the schools and metal detectors so that you couldn't walk into the school with a gun. It would go off. I don't know. Some of you might think this is just karma. But sisters, I know you have an opinion. What do you think?
Well, I have a lot of opinions on this. One of the things I want to point out is the shooter in Buffalo was a white nationalist, and he targeted Black people, and most of the people who he killed were elderly, going off that stupid Great Replacement theory that has been touted on Fox News and has now they're all saying the quiet part out loud of racist Republican representatives. I have that to say about this. That's part of it. But I don't think just being on our knees and praying is enough. Thoughts and prayers aren't doing it. Yes, I'm blaming the changing of the lack of change of hearts. I'm also blaming the fact that we allow the Republican Party to hijack Christianity and meld it with guns and rights and Second Amendment rights that they have bastardized because it's about militia. It's about an army. It is not about everybody gets their own AK-47. It is not about any of that, or their AR-15s or any other weapons of war. That's the other thing. The thing is that yes, as church people, we should be doing something. We should be mobilizing to talk to our, and I don't care if it is political, because when somebody comes into the school, it's more than just political, it's personal. And yes, they should be mobilizing their legislature and their legislators to vote down assault weapons, and to vote for common sense gun laws. And don't tell me that it doesn't work. It works in every single other developed country but ours. It works. We just don't want to work it because too many people are greedy and are in bed with the gun lobby, and they're in bed with NRA, and they're getting millions of dollars. The same week that this happened, the NRA held its convention in Texas. The same week that Columbine happened, the NRA, and maybe it wasn't the same week, but it was at least very close to that. They had their convention in Colorado. People are more in love with their guns than they are with their own children.
Naima?
Well, you know, we're all collectively responsible for this happening. And it's easy to point fingers and name political parties and all of that, but it's a collective responsibility that we have to take. When these things happen, they are to awaken us to take the steps necessary to change what we're doing in our culture.
Yeah.
We started my radio host team and we started a group called WAVE, Women Against Violent Entertainment. We've got the website up and we've got some steps to take, and got Facebook page up, but we hadn't pushed it yet because something had to happen so that people realize we created this environment that we're experiencing. Women Against Violent Entertainment, first of all, is to raise consciousness that we're using violence as entertainment and we're indoctrinating our children to be violent. You can't play on your TV or the movies or cartoons even or commercials, people getting blown up, people getting shot at, people getting assaulted as entertainment, and then be wondering what happens when somebody who is emotionally imbalanced explodes in violence. And you can't have a society where the people who manufacture guns are so profit driven that even in non-declared war times, they still want to keep a market going of selling war weapons. And they don't feel bad when somebody who's emotionally imbalanced shoots up a classroom. You can't have a society where we're listening to music that is violent, that is applauding violence, glorifying violence, and you let that be piped all over the airwaves, whether it's radio waves, whether it's independent waves, whatever it is, and you say nothing to your children to let them know that this is indoctrinating them to accept violence and even enact violence, and then be surprised when violence erupts. So we're accepting it as a way of life. And everybody, like you said, Cheryl, keeps talking about the First Amendment and all of that.
Second Amendment.
The reality is we have accepted this. We have allowed this to be a part of our children's upbringing, their accepted culture, their entertainment. We've rewarded the blockbuster movies that use violence and death as entertainment until we choose to stop as a collective, understanding that this is what we have created. Until we choose to stop, we'll keep experiencing this. And there's no one to blame for this but ourselves. There's no one making us do this. There's no one making anybody turn on their television set and watch violence daily. I don't care if it's the news or if it's just a movie. When something like this happens, look at the effect of them playing it over and over and over and over again and giving you all the gory details over and over and over again. Look at what it does to you. How does it make you feel? So they're keeping everybody at this very low vibration, constantly absorbing the worst behavior in humanity all day, every day, TV, radio, internet. And
that's
then
why you have to be
using
selective
it as
about what
entertainment.
you choose to watch.
But
So
let me just interject.
To stop. We can't blame and we can't point the finger at any particular political party. We are all collectively participating in this, except for those who have chosen to stop. And until more people make that choice, then we're going to keep adding to the collective consciousness of violence and fear and feeding it to our children and keeping them in a state of fear. You can't be educated when you have to worry about if you're going to lose your life when you go to school. So I believe until we can get a handle on this, until we can make some common sense decisions about what we're projecting out into the atmosphere as entertainment, as culture, as a way of life, maybe we need to just homeschool our children. Just go back to the pandemic times. Stay at home.
I almost would say the same thing because during the pandemic, nobody was getting shot in school because everybody was at home with their parents homeschooling them. But I will say that at the schools where I have taught here more recently, they have practices. It's like fire drills where the kids learn how to not just hide under their desks. Some of these schools have actual safe rooms. You practice going in the room, being absolutely silent. The shades are drawn, the lights are out, and they practice these activities 2 or 3 times a year in preparation for an active shooter. They have special codes for this. They train the teachers. They train the substitutes, which is what I was doing all year, to help them learn some measure of protection, almost expecting it without instilling fear, just like a fire drill would not make you be freaked out that you're going to get scorched to death, because you've been trained to react a certain way during the practice when there may be imminent danger. That's when I'm looking ahead about, until we make those changes, how are we going to protect our children in the public and private schools?
Okay, I'm going to make a couple of points here. And the reason why I'm wearing this is because I have very, very loud neighbors today. They all decided everybody needs to hear all their music. But one thing is that I agree with you to a point about violence as entertainment, Naima. Except violence is entertainment, violent songs, violent video games, violent movies, and everything else is not unique to America. What is unique to America is the lack of gun laws and gun safety. That is, all of these things are happening in other countries, but the one thing that is not happening are mass shootings. Because what happens is that because the people who make the laws in these other countries right away go in and ban these weapons. There was a school, the last school shooting in the UK was 26 years ago. A person went in and shot up a school. 2 days later, they changed the laws. It happened in New Zealand, changed the laws. The thing is that I would say, okay, yes, we are indoctrinating our children, but I'm not blaming violent video games or news or music or anything else, because one, it's happening all over, and two, what is paired with that is the easy accessibility of guns. There is a law about sensible gun laws and gun safety that has been sitting in the Senate for 2 years from the House of Representatives, that 50% or 50 senators have made sure will not even be introduced. So yes, I am blaming political party, because I think that is law and and the two of the Democrats who decide that the filibuster is more, which is a racist thing in itself, that's a whole nother show, is more important to preserve than to preserve life. And yes, this is what happens when we decide to live with terrorism. And yeah, I remember fire drills. They were actually kind of a good way to get out of class. But the thing is that now we are talking about training our children for when. They don't even think if, they think when the person comes in to shoot up the school. And that's the worst thing, to have to train children to play dead or to go into a safe room or to use weapons or how to barricade or how to break out the windows. That is the tragedy. That is the real abomination. How are we keeping our children safe? Well, like you said, they put in
Metal
metal
detector.
detectors. That helps, because you know what? All these schools, a lot of these schools where these things happen, they don't happen in inner city schools. They'll let y'all people come in with any guns or knives or anything. A lot of them, like the Columbine, they happen in the safe neighborhoods, the safe white urban or white rural places where people think that they are being safe, and so they don't have those resources. And having cops in the school is a whole nother thing. How do we keep our kids safe? We have to start with I don't know if homeschooling is a thing, because of the social isolation that came from that and the subsequent mental health problems that came from homeschooling and being isolated. I don't have the answers to how to keep our children safe in school, because our schools aren't safe. And we have to figure out what we need to do from the people who represent us to make sure that our schools are safe. I'm the last one to have a child. So my daughter was one of those who went through the drills. Naima and Barbara, I'm sure your kids didn't even go through those kind of drills at that time, because
No.
Columbine hadn't happened. But
Right.
my daughter had to have those drills.
How did she feel about that?
I never really talked to her about the drills. I don't think they did it very often, because she was in a Catholic school, for one thing, when she was in grade school.
Mhm.
And they did have a lockdown once. Somebody with a gun was in the neighborhood. And of course, her school was like almost directly across from the police station. So it was kind of scary for her. But I think the tragedy is that we have normalized this. We
Well,
have
that's the point.
normalized, yeah, that's the tragedy, that's the abomination. We have normalized terrorism in the one place that kids are supposed to be safe.
Well, now when you think about it, a fire drill, fire can happen.
Yeah.
And there's no person to blame, electrical fire, any kind of thing can happen.
Right.
So there's nothing to attach a child's thoughts to certain people.
Fires
or
are
to be
accidents.
feared.
Shootings are purposeful.
Yes.
Right. So now I remember, well, I don't remember, but I know probably before our time, they had the bomb shelters and all
Yeah.
of that.
We did that.
Now
See, that was-
I don't remember us doing
Yeah,
that in school.
Yeah, we didn't do
We
that
hide
by
under
the time
desks,
we
but
grew up.
Sean does. My husband does. He
Yeah.
does remember
And
that.
we did it.
Yeah, and I don't remember it. So they had probably
They had the
stopped it by
siren
that
go
time.
off and
Yeah.
you prepare for a bomb. But this was during
Like
the
that
Cold
was going to
War.
help.
Right. And this was during the Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thought was, well, if we get bombed, then this is what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I haven't talked to any people from that era where that happened, but we could have continued doing that, or we could have diffused the hostility between the nations so that there was no longer a threat of nuclear attack. Now, which thing makes more sense?
What's happened. That is what happened. There
Right.
became, they taught so that because we agreed that there would be mutual destruction, that nobody was going to live, that there was no reason.
war games.
Yeah, exactly. There was no reason to continue to do that. And that's the problem, is that instead of us deciding, okay, what can we do to make sure this doesn't happen, the answer is always, well, let's arm the teachers, or let's add more guns. This is like saying, okay, there is a fire, so let's put some gasoline on it. Let's throw gasoline on the fire that's already raging. And it makes absolutely no sense to think, Barbara, would you want to take a gun? Would you want a gun?
No, I am so no. No. And I feel like other teachers, I'm there to teach, not be the police.
Yeah,
Yes.
or shoot the children who misbehave.
Or shoot the children who misbehave.
And that's usually what would happen.
Yes.
Your classroom be quiet though. but the thing about it is, just like you mentioned, police in the schools, I think about that 6-year-old that the police handcuffed and dragged away.
Yeah,
that's inappropriate
crazy.
Also, because when you have that presence, then they also overreact and are inappropriate.
Escalate a situation
that is not a police situation, right?
And so all the police that were standing around there for an hour,
yeah,
because they were afraid of getting shot.
Oh yeah,
they had tactical gear.
Now,
obviously, these people do not watch Shamar Moore on SWAT.
Okay, yeah, so that's a TV show.
Yeah, they didn't know. You're right. See, they should have been watching, and they would know what to do, right? So the thing is, if you look at countries that don't have this problem and examine what they're doing, simply do what they're doing. And then you look at countries who have terrorism problems. Okay, well, what is it they're doing? Okay, then don't imitate what they're doing, because they have an environment where children live with terrorism and possible every day. Somehow, I don't know how you grew up normal in that environment. But if you know what you don't want and you know what you do want, simply look at those who are living the way you would like to live and do what they're doing. That's the intelligent decision.
Well, Cheryl has a good point too about legislation, because I think sometimes we as citizens are a little bit lazy about who we are voting for into office. I mean, you'll have these judges that give these horrendous outcomes, like some woman gets raped and then the judge is like, oh, boys are just being boys, and they let them off. And you have that kind of stuff happening so much, I can't even hardly get into it. But if people would be willing to read about their people that are going to be placed in positions of leadership, you will find out that not all Republicans are bad, not all Democrats are bad, but you need to be able to read where these people stand and be willing to pick and choose. I have so many friends who have never voted for somebody outside of a certain party. What does that tell you? They are blinded to what certain people stand for because they are looking at a name and not at a policy that a person supports.
And they need to confront those people, that these people are supposed to represent us. Yes, I tend to vote blue all the time, but I have also voted for Republicans whom I thought had the right policy, who were progressive. There are some that I didn't vote for, but there are some that I did. I don't always just vote straight blue just because they're blue. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people and a lot of our needs are not being met. And the thing is that instead of engaging in culture wars about banned books and don't say gay and all these other culture wars, look and see what these people are doing about the things that will affect you and your family. Gun safety. If you don't know how your representatives
supporting
it's voting on that, then you make a call to their office and you ask them. You ask what when all of those policies come out, take the time, sit down and read, and don't say, oh, I won't vote because it doesn't make a difference. It won't make a difference if you don't vote. That means that nothing will change if you don't vote.
Well, I think also we have to realize that people who do get elected, they represent a way of thinking, and that's why they got elected. So it's not like they got in there by accident. They were put in place by people who believe as they believe. So you don't know what percentage of people act out of fear and are believing the best thing to do is arm the teachers or put more police in. Any fear-based decision is always going to be wrong because it's going to assume things about other people that are not true. So we don't know how many people are thinking, how can we create more peace by removing weapons? And how can
There
we?
are more there the percentage is like 60 to 80% of
Well,
people support common sense gun laws. You can license, you can insure, you can ban assault weapons because those are weapons of war, but all those things can be done, but we can't be lazy. We can't sit there and say, yeah, but other people don't think that way. I think that way, and my vote counts. Don't say
so,
your vote doesn't count.
so
Absolutely.
beyond voting, because the
You
legislature
can
changes
support.
every election, how do you change what you do in your life to keep your children safe in school, in the grocery store, and any place else without them becoming so fear-based that they can't enjoy life? How do you do that?
Well, that's kind of hard because the thing is that until we solve problem A, we're not going to get to problem B. What I told, and I'm sure you all have young or a little bit older children now, but I always told Sarah, when you go to a party or you go to a club and there's an argument that breaks out, I don't
Please.
care. You know what? That means it's time to go. I don't care if you
Yes.
just walked in. It is time to go because you don't know what's going to happen. And she actually was when she was in Kansas for her friend's graduation. She went to a place that had always been safe, and somebody started shooting, and she got injured. She was not shot, but she was injured by cut glass trying to get out.
Mhm.
And it triggered her for a long time. She had a hard time, even going out. That was terrifying for her.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm glad that now she feels a little bit safe. She did talk to someone about it who helped her out a lot. But the thing is that you have to kind of keep your head on a swivel, just like all women do all the time.
That
It's
is
like,
true.
we're always looking around, checking people out when we go somewhere. The grocery store. And the thing is that, like I said, until we address all the issues, all the racial issues, all the sexual violence issues, all the gun issues, all the fear, all the ignorance, all those things, we're always going to be on a swivel. we
Well,
you
this
know we've had kids who, all of our kids have been to countries where they can walk around. I've been to a country where I can walk around at night and not even think and not even worry.
It's a different culture. When I was with Lavinia in China and we were going somewhere and she's taking me down these dark alleys and
the
I'm
same
looking
thing. I went through that with Zakia, and I'm like, okay, this is a street, looks like an alley, no
this is
lighting,
Yep.
and
this is
Yep.
2 o'clock
scary.
in the
And
morning,
people in the alley, they're just out like taking out their
shopping.
laundry, putting it on a line or something. Just ordinary people just hanging out. And I'm like, we
Yep.
were safe. But
Same
the
thing when I was in
atmosphere was
Japan.
safe.
Yeah.
So now
But
there's an answer. We've got the answer right there. What are people doing in these countries that keeps everyone safe?
well,
And you can walk the street at any time of the night and no one worries about their children getting shot up at school. What are they doing?
They don't allow guns in
That's
China, but they do have stabbing. The thing is, you can subdue a stabber much faster than somebody with a gun.
especially an assault
and
rifle.
and a lot of the police officers in a lot of these developed countries also do not use guns. They do
Okay.
not have guns all the time, because that's the other thing. That's a whole nother story about, these unarmed Black people who suddenly are fearful, or the cops are always in fear of their lives, with unarmed people, but they can't seem to, but they can manage to de-escalate when it's an armed white person. So that's the other thing, is that a lot of
Or stand
police.
outside and wait till they shoot up everybody.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing, is that the training that's the other thing we can do. We can train our police for more than a few weeks. Most of these countries, their cops are trained for years before they are, and they don't have to carry guns. They're trained in de-escalation. They do more to fill our police officers with fear so that they're too afraid to go in when there's an actual gunman than they do to de-escalation, to all other things. And I think that that's the other thing. The other developed countries have a different mindset about police. We have still gone. We have not progressed beyond the
Slave
police,
patrollers.
the police thinking that started with slavery.
Right.
We have not gone beyond that kind of thinking about what the police's job is. It is to protect property and white people, but first property.
Well, you know, you can't change other people from the outside. You can't change what other people do. You can be angry at it and you can be frustrated about it, but you can't change other people's thinking. And
Right.
this is why we stay at this
Impasse.
Yes.
So the thing is, how do you empower yourself so that you feel safe? Now, I'm again saying the attention you give something gives it greater power, it gives it greater prominence, and it increases it. When you have a culture where you are constantly bombarded with the worst of human behavior so that everybody is in a state of fear and paranoia
And anger.
coupled
Everybody's
with anger,
angry. Everybody's angry all the time.
and stereotyping people who look like somebody who did something.
Yes.
So you have all of this programming toward violence, and then you have gun sellers who are profiting off of that mentality. The way to empower yourself is to not be indoctrinated with fear-based thinking. That means controlling what you ingest in your mind. I'm choosing not to listen to that 24/7 violence. I'm choosing that so I can be in a state of inner peace and I can carry a spirit of peace with me and I can walk without fear whatever time of the day or night. It's not being blind to what's happening. It's taking power over my life so that other people don't set the agenda and make me live in fear. I'm choosing that. And I'm projecting a certain spirit because I don't have that fear. And I'm also not allowing that to be in my mind all day, all night. Okay, I heard about the Texas shooting. I'm not going to allow them to keep bombarding me with all the horrible details so I can get more and more angry and frustrated because I already know who we need to vote out who won't vote for sensible gun laws. I don't need to hear every wound that every child had or how each child tried for help. I don't need to be further enraged because that's going to affect me physically, emotionally, spiritually. And they do that, and that becomes entertainment, giving you all the gory details over and over again. And then you're frustrated and angry at people who won't change the laws. But listening to all that horror, is that really changing anything? Is that saving anybody? Or is it killing you? Slowly killing you, listening to that over and over again. And it becomes, for the news networks, it becomes entertainment. It becomes the way they get ratings. And it's the goriness of what we allow ourselves to constantly be indoctrinated with, be entertained with, be subjugated to, that creates the environment where we can't feel safe and we're always paranoid about people. And this is what a lot of the police, their problem is. They're trigger happy because they're being fed that all day long.
Except when
any black man with a cell phone, they're ready to pull out a gun and shoot because of how they think. And that's a problem. We need all those things you share, Cheryl. We need to do all those things. We need to do all those things, but we need to take care of ourselves. We need to take care of our own mind, our own psyche, our own spirit.
And
that
we need
so important. I think,
and we need to stop normalizing this by figuring out by saying, okay, maybe I was just looking at TikTok and somebody was showing about how the bulletproof thing that you put in your kid's backpack. That is horrendous. That is normalizing this. That
Yes.
is not, and I'm not saying that some people aren't going to do it, and maybe that makes them feel better. But the thing is that the more we try to adjust to the status quo instead of addressing the status quo and say, how do we stop that? We are normalizing school shooting,
Right.
mass shooting, uh, teaching people, go into a safe room, get your gun, arm the teachers, arm the students. All of the stupidity is about, why are you so fearful? If you're God, if you think God can save you from vaccine, from COVID and everything else, then why do you need a gun? Why do if you are so God centered, why do you need a gun? Why do you need your teacher that you don't even trust with curriculum to have a gun?
I know,
And
right?
we need to stop normalizing
Insanity.
insanity as if, oh yeah, this happened, so how can we keep this from happening again? Well, first, somebody said, if you see a kid hitting another one with a stick, you
Jump
take the
in
stick,
there.
well, you take the stick away.
Yes.
Right.
You
And
don't
I
just
think we need to also take it a step further in terms of compassion. This upcoming weekend, I am doing a workshop on compassion, ministering to hurt and angry church folks. But I think I also have to incorporate how to minister to families who have an extreme loss, like losing a child through violent behavior. We need to be able to be in a place knowing what kind of world we live in and reaching that person at a place where we can be empathetic, showing how much we care by our actions, not always feeling like we have to say something, being the way that Job's friends were in the beginning, where they sat with him in his grief for a week. And then the trouble started when they opened their mouths. But the truth is, they expressed compassion for his deep pain, losing all his children, losing all of his property, losing everything that he owned, and then getting a dreadful disease where he's covered head to foot with these nasty giant boils. And his grief and his pain was so deep, and his friends were with him so deeply that they were there for him and they sat in silence. I think that we need to be willing to do the hard thing, because obviously we live in a world where there is going to be continual tragedy. We can only do so much in our own strength, which is why we have to nurture that compassion as Christ has shown us, to help people through these things. While we are angry, use that anger to be motivated to do what is going to be the right thing. Yes, we can vote. Yes, we can go forth and try to have certain rules in place that will provide protection for our children and our teachers. But at the same time, we need to recognize there's a lot of therapy that's going to be needed for these people who've gone through these horrendous actions, and find our place and where we belong in a world that is clearly falling apart.
Well,
I say,
the good thing about something that's falling apart is because it was built on a shaky foundation and needs to be rebuilt. You speak of compassion.
mhm,
If we're compassionate, then we have a society that is sensitive to the needs of a child before they become that maniacal adult that grabs a gun.
right.
That person who did that went through something that created that personality. Somebody saw something somewhere, whether it was
And did
bullying,
nothing.
teasing, whatever, and did nothing. They maybe saw him get hit with the stick and nobody took the stick away. All these things. So whenever somebody acts out of violence, people are giving what was given to them. Whatever you give to a child, they give back to you or someone else. If you give them pain, they're going to give it back to somebody. It
Hurt
doesn't just
people
happen in a
hurt people.
vacuum. Even that person who shot up people in Buffalo, Whoever infused them with hate, fear, whatever it was, that's what was inside of him. That's what came out of him. So if we want to have compassion, then let's get with our children and talk to them, not to live in fear of, well, this is how you prepare yourself when a shooter comes and shoots up the classroom. No, this is how you treat people so that no one is angry and hurt. This is how you form a society where you take care of people's needs so they're not living in distress and hunger and fear and degradation. This is how you create a culture where you care about people and you reach out to people. This is how you prevent people creating this kind of situation because they're in pain, because they've been misguided, because they've been living with hurt. And when we do that, then even if the gun sellers are selling guns, nobody will want to buy them because nobody will be angry enough to go out and kill. That's really where the foundation starts. So if you talk about compassion, the first compassion is for those souls that we're raising up now that are going to take over this world. They need to create a better world. So yeah, what we have, it needs to fall apart so they can build a better world in place of what we have.
Well, I would also say that we need to start being reactive and being active. We have
Absolutely.
there are a lot of mothers against guns, against gun violence. There's all different
Against drunk.
organizations that do that. Nicole Hockley, whose son Dylan was one of the children who was killed at Newtown. She is part of an organization, and please Google her. I can't think of which organization it is, but and they go into schools and they educate people and they do this kind of work. So there is work that is being done from that point before it gets to the age where you're 18 years old and you can't wait to go out and get a gun, or you're 17, you can't wait to go out and get a gun and kill some people. It's more than just violent video games. It's more than just violent music. It's more than just violent TV. It's a lot of the desensitizing of people by seeing this as entertainment. But there's also things that we can do before then to show, this is real people. These are real bullets. These people are not actors who are going to get up and you're going to see them on your next favorite show.
Mm-hmm.
You are going, when you see a child who's in pain, who is torturing animals, who is mean to his siblings, who's mean to his friends, who's being bullied or is a bully. When you see that, monitor what your kids are looking at online. Monitor what their Facebook posts are. This kid
posted
wrote on Facebook
online
all before he did it, when he shot his grandmother.
Yeah.
So these are the things that react, yes, but take action before. There are things we can do before it escalates to this problem, and it's on all of us. If
Absolutely.
you see a kid that's hungry, that's cold, the kid that wears dirty clothes to school, whose parents maybe are not taking care of them, instead of
might be homeless.
Be homeless.
Instead of letting children tease them about their smell and their odor and doing nothing.
Exactly. Step in and say, what can I do to help this child?
And also, I'd like to bring up that after the Columbine shooting, there was a program initiated by one of the parents of the child who was shot. It's called Rachel's Challenge. And that was a thing that was initiated in many schools, where they talked to the students and found out that many of them were contemplating killing their schoolmates or committing suicide.
Why? What was the reason?
Challenge. It was various things. A lot of kids who have been bullied, a lot of kids who are having a rough time at home, a lot of kids who had different kind of domestic violence happening in their own homes, where they were able to express these things. I'm not remembering exactly how it works, but Rachel's Challenge was the name of the program that Rachel's father initiated. And it came from her actual diaries, where she shared a lot of things that were going on in her life. And she was one of the first students that was killed when one of the boys went up to her and said, "Are you a Christian?" And she said, yes, I am. And he shot her in the head. And that was like the initiative program that started to help students be able to express how they're feeling, how they can have those feelings change, how they can move toward healthy thinking, healthy acting, healthy solutions to real problems.
You know, when I was teaching high school and I was teaching a English class, and I gave the students an assignment to write a letter to the person who had made them the angriest and say everything they wanted to say. I would say about 70% of them wrote their letters to their fathers.
Oh,
For whatever reason, fathers weren't in the home, they were angry, disappointed them, and all of that. And the other 30%, it was like a girlfriend or a boyfriend that had broken up with them. But the intensity of their anger, I mean, this was frightening because it's so much rage, so much hurt. Now,
And pair that
one
with
day,
the ability to get a gun easily.
yes.
Yes.
So now one day I was substituting for the art teacher, and I had them do an art project to draw a picture of what they would like to happen to a person who had made them angry. And you'd be surprised at the creative ways of dismemberment and killings and shootings and just blood and gore. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, this is what's inside of these high school students toward, you know, girlfriend, boyfriend, you know, step parent, whoever they were angry at that they wanted to see hurt. So this is what's inside of them. So we have to have some kind of way to let them talk about what they're going through and heal the pain and acknowledge what they're going through, because we don't know until somebody gets access to a gun and then flips out and shoots up. Usually people who had nothing to do with whatever happened to them.
Yes, even if he had been bullied, he wasn't bullied by fourth
He wasn't
graders.
bullied by those children, right?
Not by those children, no.
So it's a lot of hurt that we're ignoring, and we're not allowing young people to express. And whatever happened to him, it started young, probably. It didn't just start like in high school, whatever. You know, who knows? Well, they said that when
He was
in
bullied
school,
from a young age and continued bullying for every single little thing.
Yeah.
But you know what?
And sometimes
but you know what?
teachers are part of that too.
Yeah. But you know what? There's also somebody who knew him in school that said he was not bullied. He was the bully.
That could have been, it could have been, both of those could have been true.
Yeah. So let's, you know, I'm not saying that one, yeah, and you're right. Both of those could have been true. The thing is that he still chose to shoot his grandmother.
Yeah.
That says something about,
and then whom he had moved in with.
Mm-hmm.
And he had decided to do this, and he was so excited about finally getting these guns. Somebody, you know, wasn't watching and wasn't paying attention. And sometimes when you are just trying to get through the day, just trying to put food on the table, just trying to get done, you forget to attend to those needs of those children.
Multiple people were not paying attention.
Multiple people were not paying attention.
18-year-old buying assault weapons. Why? Who you at war with? You ain't in the army.
Why is that allowed at 18?
Yeah.
I want to know.
Yeah.
I mean,
he could not illegally even get a beer.
Yeah. You can't get a beer, but you can get a
18 is vote, and that's all you need to be doing. You should not be buying guns or drinking, in my opinion, before the age of 35.
65 when you're retired and you ain't got nothing else to do.
Right. 85 when they take your driver's license.
Yeah.
But really, I think it comes down to paying attention to people who are in distress. And teachers have to be a lot more proactive.
But you know what? Then, but we ask so much of our teachers too.
We do, and they have too many kids.
They have too many kids,
too many children with emotional problems,
and too many. You know, we need to expand. Well, you know, especially places like Texas where they refuse to expand Medicare so that there would be money there for mental health, for school resource. And I don't mean school resource officers as an armed police. I mean counselors. I mean people who will talk to the kids, people, guidance counselors, those kind of things, nurses psychiatrists, psychologists, those kind of resources that if you have in the school, that they will help, you know, at least get a red flag going, get the red flag laws for guns, make
Yeah.
sure the guns have to be, you one, ban assault weapons. Straight
Yeah,
out,
that's a
ban
real
assault
that's a
weapons.
little thing that could have been done a
That's the
long
one
time
thing
ago.
that could done. Yeah.
Small.
Then you have to be 21. You have to go through a
I
background
said
check.
35.
You have
I
to
was
be
serious.
licensed. You have to have insurance. You have to have gun safety. You have to have training. If you did all of that, a lot of people
And a
would be
long
alive,
waiting period.
and a waiting period.
Do,
And
do
if
you
you
think
have domestic violence or all of those other things on your record, no, you cannot get a gun. And people say, when you ban guns, only criminals will get guns. Well, yeah, well, you know what? They're already getting guns.
so? Do you think that the citizens who are angry about the government doing nothing about this should perhaps boycott paying taxes until
Throw
the
tea into the ocean.
until the government can ban these weapons and keep our children safe? I mean, you have to be able to figure out, just like anybody else in business or anything else that does something that you don't like and you don't want to keep paying them money to do what you don't like. What can we remove from the government, from those who are getting paid from our tax dollars,
You
so
can
that
remove
they will
you
pass
remove
these laws?
those people from the government, and you make sure that the NRA loses its tax exempt status, which it should not have.
But too
I
many
agree.
elected officials, apparently either they're financed by these lobbyists or whatever the
Get
case
them out.
is, they
You
have
get
been
them
too
out.
afraid to stand up to them.
Then you get them out, because they're all about the money, because most people will support common sense gun laws. I support common sense gun laws. Do I want a gun? No. Would I have one in my house? No. You know,
Well,
but
after
but
Sandy Hook, they wouldn't do it.
no, and you know what? That's when I was done. I was done because I said this was a rich white community. These were all well off, and they didn't care then. I said they don't care about us. Just like Michael Jackson, they don't really care about us. They don't care
Right.
about any of us. They don't care about their own kids. And so us moms against the gun violence, there's plenty of other things. We
Yeah.
have to do something. But the one thing we can do is vote the greedy people out who decide that their politics is more important than my child's life.
Well, in our organization, our group, Women Against Violent Entertainment, we've got some economic steps that we're suggesting, and I know people, uh, they may not see the connection, but again, if you create a culture where violence is normalized and even entertained, where your children are desensitized to it, and all the other things combined, you end up with this situation. So we got to take a step where we have the power to at least set a certain atmosphere in our own household. I think
Right.
that's a responsible thing everybody can do. And then once we've done that, then we might even see a difference in the way children behave and treating each other.
Well, even in terms of the music, I remember when Tipper Gore was all about labeling violent music and having them be actually labeled so that you knew the rating on certain albums. And there was like a lot of pushback from her saying, oh, you're trying to control the record industry. But really, that alerted parents to what kind of music might not be suitable for your kids at a certain age to
Yes.
be listening
And you
to.
know what it also did? It made some of these people use clean versions of things if they wanted, because there's
Yeah.
plenty of stuff that I've got. Well, it'll say explicit things, but
Explicit
then
lyrics.
but if they're not, if they're using them like Sarah's a hip hop dancer, if they're using these things when she was younger, and I would look, listen to this stuff, and the teacher would come out and say, "Okay, I'm looking for a clean version of this," and say, "Yeah, why don't you do that?"
Mm-hmm.
So these are the things, is that there are almost all of these things. You can find clean versions of things if you don't want your kid listening to that or dancing to it or any of those
Mm-hmm.
kinds of things, no matter what their
Vote with
age.
your dollars.
Vote with your
Vote with
dollars.
your
You
dollars.
always vote with your dollars. Either
Yes.
you boycott things that you find
Or Offensive?
abhorrent, like
Yeah.
violent video games or violent music or going to the movies or things like that. You know, yeah, you can vote for your with your dollars, and you also can vote for the representative that you want. And if you
That's
can't
right.
find that person, you know what you can do?
You can
You
run.
can run
There
for
you
something.
go. There you go. All right. Well, it's about time for us to go. This has been another invigorating conversation. We want you all to make some decisions that empower you. Go to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, Three Black Moms. Leave your comments. But we want you to find out where your representative stands on sensible gun laws, banning assault weapons. Who is your representative? Where do they stand? And do you need to take them out in terms of voting them out?
Yes. Yes.
So that they can be replaced with someone who cares enough for the lives of our children to remove them from danger and remove access to weapons of war in the hands of any civilian. Simple.
Agreed.
So, yes. So we've got to go. And any last words on what you think we ought to do for our children to make them feel safe when they go to school?
I definitely support Rachel's challenge. That can be implemented in any school across the nation. All you have to do is
And
Google it. Rachel's challenge.
and there's also Nicole Hockley's organization. Please, her last name is spelled Hockley. She was one of the moms whose son Dylan was killed at Sandy Hook. So she's been on Jamie Gutenberg's father Fred, who Jamie was a 14-year-old who was killed at Parkland in Florida, and he also is very influential,
Proactive.
and
Yes.
he's very proactive. So go on Twitter, follow these people on Twitter, find out what their organizations are, donate to their organizations. If you feel like helpless, throw $25 at them. At least you can get some of the things that where they can go in, they can educate students, they can educate parents, they can educate officials, and they can go to their legislature. If you can't run, if you don't have the time, if you don't have $25, give them $5. Whatever
somebody.
you can do,
And
support
volunteer.
somebody, volunteer.
Absolutely. And volunteer. There you go.
And let your child know that we care, because our children are all of our children.
Absolutely.
You're all our children.
And
All
our
children.
future.
Absolutely. Well, we got to go. Until next time, I'm Naima.
I'm Cheryl.
I'm Barbara. We are Three Black Moms. Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're Three Black Moms.